the Burisma partner who worked very closely alongside Hunter, who was apparently a good friend of Hunter's, and they traveled together and knew each other very well. Of course, he recently testified behind closed doors to a congressional investigation into this. And so what he said was under oath. So there's plenty of reason, I give that more credence when somebody actually is under oath. And what he
Yeah.
said, right? Yes, what he said was um, that the brand is this is the word he used. The brand is the reason why Hunter was being paid so much by Burisma, and the brand was Joe Biden. And it wasn't. If you look at what he says, it wasn't just the illusion of access, which is the way Democrats are trying to spin this, but actual access that Joe Biden, who initially said he had absolutely no idea what his son did for a living and wasn't party at all to any of the conversations, we know that that's not true, that
Mhm.
he was on speakerphone over 20 times, that he actually met with these shady foreign sources and executives in dinners, which initially Joe Biden said was just purely Russian disinformation and propaganda, but it has actually been substantiated. So we have moved out of the allegation stage for quite a number of the claims.
Yeah.
But that's one set of allegations. But the other one, I think, in a way, is even more damning. And that is that the vice president at the time, Joe Biden, fired the prosecutor, essentially the attorney general of Ukraine, around like late February, March 2016, because this guy, Victor Shokin,
Mhm.
was investigating Burisma
Mhm.
and was coming close to really laying down the hammer and exposing this corruption racket. So for a while now, it's been undisputed that Joe Biden did personally fire the prosecutor in
Mhm.
Ukraine. And the
Mhm.
reason why that's undisputed is because there's a big videotape of Joe Biden bragging about it while speaking to the Council on Foreign
Sure.
Relations.
And I went over for, I guess, the 12th, 13th time to Kyiv, and I was supposed to announce that there was another $1 billion loan guarantee. And I had gotten a commitment from Poroshenko and from Yatsenyuk that they would take action against the state prosecutor, and they didn't. So they said they were walking out to press conference. I said, no, I said, I'm not going to, or we're not going to give you the $1 billion. They said, you have no authority. You're not the president. The president said. I said, call him. I said, I'm telling you, you're not getting the $1 billion. I said, you're not getting the $1 billion. I'm going to be leaving here. And I think it was, what, 6 hours? I looked, I said, I'm leaving in 6 hours. If the prosecutor's not fired, you're not getting the money. Well, son of a got fired. And they put in place someone who was solid at the time.
Anyway,
Right.
what I do want to point out too is what Victor Shokin now himself. I don't know if you speak
Yes.
Russian. One of the viewers, I saw
Yes.
this yesterday, and I mistakenly said he was speaking Ukrainian, which I was corrected by one of our viewers saying, no, that's Russian. But anyway, here's Victor Shokin. You'll see part of it, and we'll translate, of course. But Victor Shokin saying that, he believes he was fired for a reason, and that reason was because he was looking into the payments being made to Hunter Biden by Burisma.
I just want to add one thing.
Yeah.
So what the Bidens were saying that they fired Shokin because he was corrupt and because he wasn't investigating Burisma. The Biden and the loyalists said that the investigation into Burisma at the time of the firing was quote unquote dormant. So if your viewers type into like Google dormant and Burisma, they will see that that was stated all over mainstream media. And what the prosecutor is saying in this video is that all of those reports, that all of that whole talking point spiel was complete nonsense.
So here it is in Russian.
В Украине. Но я практически уверен, что Байден прекрасно понимал, что я намеков о прекращении дела Бурисмы не воспринял. Я шел дальше, я и мои коллеги. И мы дойдем до логического завершения этой ситуации.
Over him a little bit here. He's saying basically that, you know, Biden understood what he was doing. Biden used all the unofficial means at his disposal in order to, in particular, by using his men, he continues, including certain MPs, and he names a few, as well as these so-called activists. He acted through them so as to not show his interest in this case. And Victor Shokin continues saying his personal interest. I mean, I always clearly distinguish Mr. Biden from the United States and the American people, he says. I clearly do, because in this specific case, Biden was acting on behalf of his own interests for his own family. That is the explanation, Victor Shokin says, in my opinion. He's actually very clear and quite nice about how he's just, you know, nothing's been proven, but this is my opinion. And these allegations are there. And look, I mean, it's become a big scandal, as it rightly should, because I just look at it, Professor Abrams, and whether you're left or right on this one, I don't care. Like, you ought to want to know the truth. You ought to want to know what's going on. And you ought to be able to hope and expect that the vice president's kid and the vice president himself, we don't know if he's in cahoots on this, but aren't, you know, basically trading off of policy for the United States.
And also directly interfering in the, you know, domestic officials in Ukraine who, according to the prosecutor, were on the verge of divulging this Biden Burisma racket. And Biden in the speech at the Council on Foreign Relations says that he was going to withhold U.S. aid to Ukraine, which desperately needed aid at the time, if the guy Shokin wasn't fired and replaced with someone, quote unquote, solid. Well, not only did Biden successfully fire Shokin, but the replacement put an end to the investigation into Burisma, which completely undercuts the Biden's rationale for the firing in the first place, because he said he was firing Shokin because he was corrupt and not investigating Burisma enough. The opposite is true. Burisma was being investigated, and the replacement put an end to the investigation. This isn't just allegations, though. We know that within 10 days of Shokin being fired, the founder of Burisma's assets were seized in Ukraine, and the founder fled the country. So that doesn't sound like a quote unquote dormant investigation. They were really feeling the fire at the time. And this is why all evidence indicates he was fired precisely then in February, March 2016.
Hey everyone, Trish Regan here. If you enjoyed that clip, please do me the favor of subscribing to the channel. Just hit that little subscribe button right over there. Did I do that right? Not quite, but you know where it is. Subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you get the alerts, and I'll see you back on the show.